so our project is on colony collapse disorder and its effect on the U.S. food production. I'm Megan Mirza.
I'm Colleen Terrell.
I'm Jordan Barnhart.
And I'm Jacob Eames.
So, the colony collapse disorder, or CCD, is the phenomenon that occurs when the majority of worker bees in a colony disappear and leave behind a queen bee, plenty of food, and a few nurse bees to take care of the remaining immature bees. A few to no adult bees are ever found in a hive that has been affected by CCD. In the picture right here, there's an example of what an empty hive looks like.
So, some causes of colony collapse disorder. Most of them are still relatively unknown, and there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered, but they have found some strong correlations with the Israeli acute paralysis and the gut parasite nosema. The National Honeybee Survey is continually sampling honey beehives and pollen to hopefully find a primary cause of colony collapse disorder one day.
So this is just a graph of the decline in the bee population since 1945. In 1945 there was a spike, and then there has been an obvious decline. This sharp decline was in one of the parasitic mites was introduced, and then right at 2007 was when CCDs actually considered a decline in bees, and then from 2007 to now, it's also been a decline. 60% of the bee population has been in decline since the mid-1940s, as seen on the previous slide. And possible causes other than CCD include pesticide poisoning, increased stress on the bees, and changes in forage areas and habitats due to increased urbanization. And this is just a video explanation of CCD.
Yeah, no, I will.
Next evolution of the Epic Pass has arrived. Ski Vale, Beaver Creek, Breckenridge, Keystone, and more. From one day to every day. Epic for everyone. Last chance. Buy your pass before November 24th. If delicate flowers are to turn into succulent fruits, they need the help of honeybees. 80% of all fruit and vegetable varieties rely on insect pollination. Bees are a vital component in 14 million euros worth of US agriculture. The bee pollination service offered by beekeeping businesses is thus crucial for fruit farmers. Beekeeper David Hackenberg has been carting his bulky hives from farm to farm for the past 50 years, ready to unleash his bees when and where they're needed.
These same bees you're looking at here, the beehives, were in almonds in February and early March. They came back here in the middle of March, and so they sat here for about 3 weeks now pollinating the orange trees. And if you walk over here,
Yet numbers of these industrious insects have been mysteriously dropping in the US, and the mass bee death isn't only worrying for beekeepers. On the West Coast, almost 60% of colonies have collapsed. In Texas and on the East Coast, the figure is even higher.
probably about 45% of our total bees we brought south, 40 and 45%. And we've made them back, but you know, the cost of doing it is, the cost of making those bees up is astronomical. Bees are having terrific losses. Why? We don't got all the answers.
Unlike with other epidemics, there are no corpses to be found lying around. The bees simply seem to be vanishing. Scientists call this phenomenon colony collapse disorder, or CCD. One possible cause is varroa mites. These parasites hide in the hive and attack the bee larvae. When they hatch, much of the brood have deformed wings, meaning that they can't fly, and a severely reduced lifespan. Plenty is known about the effects of CCD, but scientists are very uncertain about the causes. While they ponder the question, the beekeepers and the bees are fighting for survival. The beekeepers are getting ready for the next job. They're already loading the hives onto the truck, despite the fact that many of the bees are still out and about. As a result, many bees can't find their way home after gathering their nectar. The air is full of lost and disoriented bees trying to find somewhere to shelter. These bees are being transported to an apple orchard over 1,000 miles away. The 18-hour journey and their extended confinement in the overheated hive is very stressful for the insects.
However, we've been doing that for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. We've been moving bees long distances. The only thing that's changed in that regard is that we are doing it perhaps more often. More bees are moving longer distances, and they're moving more times throughout the year.
Even before CCD took hold, the number of bees in the US was diminishing, and bees are also disappearing in Europe. The collapse of these colonies has an impact on the entire ecosystem of our planet, which means negative consequences for us humans too. This mysterious mass death of honeybees is putting our food supply in jeopardy. Now, time is running out to find out what is happening and to save the bees.
Okay, so the significance that CCD has on the food production in the US. So a pollination overview, so bees are pollinators obviously, and so they transport pollen from one plant to another, and then that pollen fertilizes the plant, which in return produces a fruit and seed. So then here shows a diagram of this. So the bee comes over to this plant, picks up the pollen, and then flies over to the next plant and distributes the pollen over there.
So the actual effect on the food production, so 1/3 of US food production relies on pollination, as bees are the US's primary pollinators. Pollinators contribute around 20 billion to crop production just in the US. It's far higher around the world. And pollination also affects crops that feed livestock, not just fruits and vegetables that we typically eat. So some examples would be alfalfa that dairy and cows eat, almonds, which rely heavily on pollination, and then apples and squash, which are both flowering fruits that need to be pollinated.
So some current solutions for colony collapse disorder are there are new treatments for bee disease, and there's new ways being developed to kill varroa mites, ways to control parasites. They have acid pads, oil strips, and a chemical called Apivar, which the picture is in the corner over there. And there's also a new bee diet where they use something called Mega Bee, which is a high-protein pollen supplement that they give to the bees.
Okay, so some potential solutions, basically because CCD is relatively new and there's not a lot of information that we actually do know about it yet. So what we're working on is making crops more attractive for the pollinators. So in order to do this, what is happening is the restoration of wild habitats around farms, dividing crops up so that they bloom at different times of the year, making more diverse flora, and then also genetically breeding virus-resistant bees, and then there's alternate pollinators, such as African honeybees.
So, more examples of alternate pollinators include butterflies, wasps, moths, beetles, flies, birds, bats, wind, and you. But bees are the primary pollinators.
So what can you do to help with this? So you can cut down on your use of pesticides and fertilizers that you use in your lawn or your plants. And then you can also plant specific plants that are more attractive to the pollinators. So some of these include rosemary, geraniums, lavender, poppies, sunflowers, and then you can also buy locally produced honey. And then this is our bibliography.